Today, I'm going to talk about how to heal from parentification. If you've never heard of parentification or if you're not sure what it is, click the link in the description for more information. Simply speaking, when you're parentified, you grow up focusing on other people, worrying about what they're feeling, what they're thinking, what they need. Ultimately, you end up then lacking any connection to yourself, to your own emotions, to your own needs. So to heal, we really simply have to start to do that inner work, to start to focus on ourselves, to reflect so that we can begin to show up differently and break the habits that we learned when we were parentified in childhood. Now, of course, this can be really difficult, especially in the beginning, because what we've learned to do, our impulse, is to always look outside of ourselves, always thinking or worrying about other people. So I'm going to give you some really easy steps so that you can get started to break that habit so that you can rebuild your connection to yourself so that over time you can build a sense of confidence in your sense of self or in who you are and how you're showing up in the world around you. The first step to healing from parentification is to pause and to ask yourself, how do I feel? Now, of course, I'm sure some of you are thinking, this seems extremely basic. But for those of us that were parentified, we usually don't pause to ask how we're doing, or we don't do things for ourselves at all. We are so used to always habitually doing things based on what other people feel or what other people need. So, for instance, let's say maybe you're super busy with work and someone asks you to do a favor. A lot of you might not even pause to check in with yourself and immediately say yes to appease the person, to make them happy, maybe to avoid a reaction from them. So simply noticing that habit will now give you that opportunity to practice pausing before you make any immediate decisions, before you say yes. In those few minutes of pausing, you're going to simply check in with yourself. Asking, how do I feel? And then checking in with your body. How does your body feel? Do you actually have the resources? Do you have the time? Do you have the space? Do you have the energy? And do you have the desire to show up and to fulfill whatever request is being asked of you? That pause, shifting that focus, will begin to create some space, even if you don't yet know how you feel, to begin to explore yourself in this new way without immediately worrying about someone else and their wants or their needs. The second step to healing from parentification is you're going to want to start to plan downtime, time where there's nothing planned, time to just simply relax and be. A lot of us that have been parentified in childhood have been stuck in fight or flight, or what I call survival mode, for so long that we just keep going and going and going and doing and achieving and worrying about other people, and we don't give ourselves much downtime, if any at all. This survival cycle creates high cortisol in our body, a stress hormone, which then results in our actual physiological inability to sit still. We feel agitated. We feel like we do need to keep going to utilize our energy in that way. So, noticing that habit will allow us to then break that cycle by beginning to plan some downtime. Maybe even look in your calendar right now. Is there a couple minutes, a couple hours somewhere during your week where you might not plan anything? And then you can use that time to just relax, to just be, to get to know yourself. For some of you, maybe this means finding or returning to a hobby that you love, maybe journaling, and simply speaking, this downtime where I'm focused inward, I have the opportunity to get to learn more about who I am and what it is that I want. The third step of healing from parentification is you're going to want to begin to set boundaries. Now, this step is probably the most difficult step for anyone who's been parentified, because we have this deep belief that we've internalized that we actually have to be the fixer or the caregiver for anyone else around us. We simply feel like it's part of who we are to be that person. And the truth is that our role isn't to be on call for other people 24 hours a day. We can't be on call for other people 24 hours a day, because if we are, we're never going to be able to show up for ourselves in the way that we need to. We really do need boundaries or limits in our relationships so that other people can begin to understand how to treat us, so that we can communicate more clearly and more directly what behaviors of others that we will and that we won't tolerate. Now, because this is so difficult, because we're so used to having no boundaries to care for other people, we want to start small. And maybe we want to begin to set these boundaries or these limits with someone that we're comfortable with, that we feel safe with. And then we want to keep practicing. And these small limits can be as simple as telling someone when they call and ask you for whatever they asked you to do, simply that you're just not available. And now remember, you're probably going to feel really guilty because you're not used to doing this. You might feel selfish, right? You're used to being the person who shows up, being the caregiver for other people. So feeling that guilt and noticing it is natural. It's okay. Feeling guilt doesn't actually mean that you've done anything wrong. And with practice, not only does the guilt decrease a bit, boundaries end up getting easier over time. Now, these are 3 simple steps, simple ways that you can get started to heal from your parentification in childhood. Now, as always, remember, it's a journey. These habits and patterns don't change overnight. We've adapted these habits and patterns because it's what we needed to do that kept us safe at one time. So our body and our mind is going to hold on to those. Though, if we keep consistent and if we keep practicing, over time, you will begin to notice the shifts that you're feeling in how you're showing up in the world and your relationships, in your confidence about yourself and how you're showing up in the world and your relationships. And over time, you'll notice that your relationships are becoming much healthier. I'd love to hear from those of you listening. If you yourself are healing from parentification, I'd love to hear your journey in the comments. What have you found that's working? And what is most difficult in this process?